You want to know two secret truths that most commercial VPNs don't want you to know? First, they pay tons of money in the form of affiliate commissions and sponsorships to get people like me to list them as the best. Every week, I receive emails from new and existing VPN providers offering to pay large sums of money to review their service, and even larger sums of money if I can promise to list them at the top of any best VPN list that I create. I've talked about it before, just how corrupt this industry is. And if you've seen the video from Tom Scott a few years ago, you know that I'm not alone.
And some of the claims that VPN adverts make are wrong.
Big name tech review websites like PC Mag are owned by the same company that owns IPVanish, StrongVPN, and other VPN services. And these guys publish best VPN articles that rank very high in Google. Can you say conflict of interest? The second secret that most VPNs don't want you to know is that despite all the marketing, a VPN is not really a privacy tool. It does hide your IP address and it does encrypt your data so that your internet service provider can't see what websites you're visiting. But at the end of the day, all you're really doing is replacing your distrust in your ISP or your government or whatever with a blind trust in a VPN company that's likely very vague about who they are. And of course, I'm not talking about corporate VPNs here, which are required to give you access to your company's intranet. I'm specifically referring to commercial VPNs targeted at individuals like you and me. So what does this mean for you? First things first, you need to find somebody you trust who knows their stuff and then follow their recommendations. You see, unfortunately, when you search on Google for best VPN, the results you see are not unbiased reviews. They're simply websites that are really good at ranking on Google, something known as SEO or search engine optimization. They promote the VPN services with the highest paying commissions to help pay for the links needed to rank them high or for the ads that place them at the top of the page. Now, I challenge you to hear me out because I personally use the services I'm talking about, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can in my recommendations, but I don't expect you to take my word for it. I don't want to mislead you. I do receive a commission, and that's part of how I pay my bills, but I value your trust more than that commission, so my goal here is to educate you. And I'm going to put both direct links and affiliate links in the description of this video. You're welcome to use whichever you want. Welcome to All Things Secured. My name's Josh, and as you can tell, instead of telling you to just go buy a VPN, I prefer to give you the information you need to make your own informed decision. This includes controversial information that I'll cover towards the end of this video, so before you bash me in the comments, why don't you go ahead and watch all the way through, okay? When it comes to virtual private networks, or VPNs, there are 4 specific use cases where it makes sense to use one, or at least that's what people say. Let's take a moment to walk through each of these individually and explain why I recommend different VPNs for different use cases. First is censorship. I used a VPN personally for many years to evade internet censorship by the government in China, and there are a growing, somewhat even alarming number of countries that are doing pretty much the same thing. You see, the biggest problem you face when using a VPN to evade censorship is what I call the cat and mouse issue. Most of these countries where internet censorship is an issue, they're constantly blocking known IP addresses from VPN servers, making it a challenge to find a good connection. I remember that all the time. I would have such a difficult time finding a connection. Now, I've tried everything from proxies to shadow socks, but for the average person, it's worthwhile to invest in a VPN that is big enough to constantly change these and cycle these IP addresses and play that game of cat and mouse that's required to stay ahead of those censors. There are a number of VPN companies that fall under this category, but I've always used ExpressVPN since it was the most consistent for me in China, and it's the easiest to set up and use for the average user. But if you're going to a place like that, like China or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else, I recommend you ask ahead to anybody that lives there to find out what they use. The second reason to use a VPN is content streaming. I'm talking about movies, TV shows, live TV, etc. VPNs open up a lot of valuable streaming options for those who live abroad or just who want to access content from countries other than the one that they're currently residing in. For the longest time, Disney Plus was not available for me in Thailand, which was really frustrating. And the only way I was able to access the platform was through a VPN, and it worked. The important things to consider for streaming are speed, server location, and available apps. In other words, I found that I need a fast service with enough locations to cover the countries I might want to stream from, as well as easy to install apps for each of my devices. Now, ExpressVPN still works in this scenario, but personally, I've found Surfshark to be a better option here. The fact is that a lot of VPN services claim to have servers in X number of countries, but the reality is that they are virtual servers pretending to be in that country. They're not physically located there. Now, Surfshark does use virtual servers, but unlike other VPNs, they mark these options with a V in their software, like you see here in the case of Chile or Costa Rica. In my experience, most streaming services get confused with these virtual servers and they don't let me stream when I'm on them. And so it's helpful to be able to avoid these servers, and Surfshark lets me do that very easily. The third reason to use a VPN is to hide or change your IP address. This isn't really a privacy issue as much as it's just protection. It's popular among online gamers to use a VPN to protect from DDoS attacks or denial of service. This kind of attack isn't as common as most people portray it to be, but it is possible. You might also need to overcome an IP ban where a specific service or website has blocked access because of your IP address. The thing is, every single VPN changes your IP address. All of them. It's a fundamental feature of the technology. In other words, for this use case, it really does not matter which VPN you choose. Get the cheapest one or the one that convinces you that they're fastest. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. Any VPN you choose will hide or change your IP address if that's what you need it for. Okay, finally, I want to address the elephant in the room when it comes to VPNs: privacy. Time and again, I hear people talk about how VPNs are a great way to protect against man-in-the-middle attacks, basically shielding you while you're on a public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or an airport or something like that. What they don't tell you is just how rare these kind of attacks are. I mean, seriously, when was the last time you heard about somebody having all their data stolen while they were sitting at a Starbucks? How about never? And I know what some of you are thinking. Better safe than sorry. I'd rather use a VPN because it's safer, but is it really? First, a VPN doesn't provide any stronger encryption than what you already get with an HTTPS encrypted website connection. And nowadays, pretty much every website you visit is HTTPS encrypted. What I mean is this: when you connect to a website that has HTTPS, that right in the beginning of the URL, even if you're on a public Wi-Fi network, nobody can see what you're doing. The data is encrypted, at least with the same military-grade encryption that you get with a VPN. Also, as much as I like and use Surfshark and ExpressVPN in the use cases mentioned earlier, they're still a centralized entity that doesn't deserve my implicit trust. They have vulnerabilities just like any other company, and they could get hacked as well, even though it hasn't happened yet to my knowledge. Repeating what I said before, I don't see why everybody is so gung-ho about trusting these VPN companies over their ISP or public Wi-Fi network. I use VPNs when it doesn't involve my sensitive information. For everything else, where privacy is a priority, I prefer alternatives. I've already done a video about VPN alternatives that you should watch after this if you have a moment, but my favorite in this category is a DVPN known as Mysterium. DVPN stands for Decentralized VPN, and it harnesses the power of a peer-to-peer network, basically using servers not controlled by any one single company to power this worldwide VPN. While this doesn't eliminate all risks, it does minimize it. The benefits of something like Mysterium is that it's usually a lot cheaper than the traditional VPN, but if you want something free, I think using Tor is still safer than using a VPN in terms of information privacy. Basically, I prefer anything that isn't centralized over something that is, even if I still use both. Does that make sense? Okay, I'll leave both direct links and affiliate links to each of these services in the description, and you can decide which one you want to use. You won't offend me. If you're intrigued by these VPN alternatives, though, you should watch this video next where I walk through 4 of my favorites. Go ahead and click here to watch.